Think you know Back to the Future? Well, think again. Sure, you remember the DeLorean, Marty McFly, and Doc Brown shouting, "Great Scott!" But behind the scenes, this time travel classic was a chaotic ride full of surprises. So, get ready, because we are firing up the flux capacitor and taking you on a ride through 20 weird facts you definitely didn't know. We are going to start strong today with a fact that not everyone knows about. Believe it or not, Michael J. Fox wasn't the first Marty McFly. That honor went to Eric Stoltz, a talented young actor who actually filmed for 5 whole weeks. Imagine the crew, exhausted, running night shoots, only to realize Stoltz just wasn't the goofy, lighthearted teenager they needed. Director Robert Zemeckis thought his performance was too serious, too dramatic. Stoltz looked like a guy who could brood about the future, but not one who'd skateboard through Hill Valley with a Walkman in his pocket. So out he went. Universal had to swallow millions in reshoot costs, and Marty was recast with Michael J. Fox, who was already busy starring in Family Ties. The result? An exhausted Fox filming TV by day and Back to the Future by night. But hey, that insane schedule gave us the Marty we all know and love today. Quirky, fast-talking, and forever late for school. Most fans think Claudia Wells was always destined to play Marty's girlfriend Jennifer Parker. But nope, her role originally went to Melora Hardin, who later became Jan on The Office. Here's the kicker. Hardin was dropped before filming even began. Why? She was taller than Michael J. Fox, and once Eric Stoltz was swapped out, the height difference suddenly mattered. Hollywood logic, right? Imagine an entire career shift because your co-star was a few inches shorter. So out went Hardin, and Claudia Wells stepped in. Ironically, Wells only starred in the first film. She didn't return for parts 2 and 3 because her mother was ill. Elizabeth Shue replaced her later on, leaving Jennifer Parker as one of those rare blockbuster roles that 3 actresses played in one trilogy. Weird casting whiplash for sure, but hey, it gave us a fun trivia rabbit hole for decades. Which one was your favorite, Jennifer? Christopher Lloyd as Doc Brown feels untouchable, wild hair, manic energy, and eyes that scream mad scientist genius. But get this, Lloyd almost passed on the role. At the time, he wasn't familiar with director Robert Zemeckis and didn't see much in the script that grabbed him. He even tossed the offer aside until a friend pushed him to take it. Once he did, he went all in. Lloyd based Doc's look on Albert Einstein's hair and conductor Leopold Stokowski's flamboyant gestures. That mix created the perfect eccentric Doc Brown we know today. Imagine if Lloyd had said no. We could have had Robin Williams, Jeff Goldblum, or even John Lithgow yelling 1.21 gigawatts. Funny to think how one hesitant choice almost erased one of cinema's most beloved duos. Great Scott, indeed. If you loved Christopher Lloyd as Doc Brown, hit subscribe and we'll know to bring you more Back to the Future content. It's impossible to picture Marty McFly traveling through time in anything other than that stainless steel, gull-winged DeLorean. But here's the strange truth. In the original drafts, the time machine wasn't a car at all. It was a refrigerator. Yep, Marty was supposed to step inside a souped-up fridge in Doc's lab. And when the machine fired up, boom, back to 1955. Spielberg and Zemeckis quickly ditched that idea for one simple reason. They worried kids would crawl into refrigerators trying to time travel and get stuck. Safety first. Plus, let's be honest, how cinematic is a kitchen appliance compared to a sports car that looks like it could fly? The switch to a DeLorean not only solved the problem, it gave the world one of the most iconic movie cars of all time. So iconic that today, you can buy replicas for more than a house. This would be the ultimate midlife crisis car buy. While the final movie is family-friendly fun, Disney flat out rejected Back to the Future when the script first made the rounds. Their reason? The so-called Oedipus subplot, where Marty's teenage mom has a crush on him in 1955. Executives thought it was way too risque for their brand. Imagine Mickey Mouse saying, "Sorry kid, this is too weird for us." Other studios also passed, calling it too sweet compared to the raunchy comedies of the 1980s. It wasn't until Spielberg's Amblin Entertainment stepped in that the film finally got a green light. Ironically, Disney later worked happily with Zemeckis on Who Framed Roger Rabbit, a movie way darker and edgier in tone. So, in a parallel timeline, Back to the Future could have been a Disney movie, if only they weren't scared of Lorraine giving her son a little too much attention. Before it became a blockbuster, Back to the Future was basically Hollywood's most unwanted script. Writers Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis pitched it to every studio in town, and they all said no. Some said it was too wholesome, in an era when raunchy comedies like Porky's were cashing in. Others thought it was too risky, because who'd want to watch a movie about time travel, skateboards, and teenagers hanging out with their parents? Disney, of course, balked at the mom crush subplot. After over 40 rejections, the duo almost gave up. The script only survived because Spielberg loved it and vouched for it at Universal. Imagine that. If one more studio exec had rolled his eyes, Marty McFly might have been shelved forever. Proof that persistence and Spielberg's clout can literally change history. Universal's studio chief Sid Sheinberg hated the title Back to the Future. He thought audiences wouldn't get it. His brilliant alternative? Spaceman from Pluto. Yes, really. He believed the movie should cash in on the sci-fi alien craze, and even suggested the comic book Marty holds should tie into that title. Spielberg, knowing a fight would be disastrous, handled it perfectly. Instead of arguing, he sent Sheinberg a thank you memo pretending the name change was a joke that got a big laugh. Genius. The memo shut Sheinberg down without hurting his ego, and the film kept its original and infinitely better title. Just imagine a world where Doc Brown shouted, "We need to go Spaceman from Pluto." Yeah, it doesn't exactly roll off the tongue. Would you have liked this title idea better? Let us know in the comments below. Remember Twin Pines Mall, where Doc unveils the DeLorean for the first time? Look closer. After Marty crashes into a farmer's pine trees in 1955, the mall's name actually changes to Lone Pine Mall when he returns to 1985. Most audiences never noticed, but it's one of the funniest little Easter eggs in movie history. The filmmakers snuck in dozens of these blink-and-you-miss-it details, making Hill Valley feel like a living, breathing town where actions actually had consequences. The Puente Hills Mall in City of Industry, California, doubled as Twin Pines in real life. And yes, fans still visit it today for selfies where Doc got zapped by terrorists in a VW bus. To this day, that tiny joke about one farmer's trees being destroyed might be the best visual gag in the entire trilogy. Small detail, huge payoff. Did you notice this little detail while watching it? You can't think about Back to the Future without humming Huey Lewis and the News' The Power of Love. But here's the fun twist. The studio never asked Huey for a time travel song or even a movie anthem. They just told him to write any upbeat track he felt like. Huey whipped up The Power of Love, and it exploded, becoming his band's first #1 single. The song fit the film perfectly, and Lewis himself even had a cameo as the nerdy school official telling Marty his band was too darn loud. The irony? That song about love, not flux capacitors, became one of the most iconic movie tracks of the 1980s. Proof that sometimes the best film magic happens when you let artists do their thing. If you love the song and you love the movie, remember to leave that thumbs up, comment, and subscribe for more. Originally, Universal wanted Back to the Future to premiere in May 1985. But after Eric Stoltz was replaced and millions were spent reshooting, the release had to be pushed back. Instead of being a disaster, it turned into a blessing. The film opened on July 3rd, right in the middle of the summer blockbuster season. That prime slot helped Back to the Future dominate the box office, becoming the highest-grossing film of 1985 with over $380 million worldwide. If it had stuck with May, it would have gone head-to-head with heavy hitters like Rambo, First Blood Part 2, and Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. Instead, Marty and Doc owned the summer. Sometimes delays are actually destiny, and in this case, it gave us a perfect July 4th weekend to kick off 30 years of time-traveling greatness. That iconic scene where George McFly finally knocks out Biff at the school dance? Crispin Glover, George, accidentally really clocked Thomas F. Wilson, Biff, during one of the takes. Wilson has joked that he's been asked about that punch more than any other part of his career. The punch looked so good, they kept the footage, even though the accident left Wilson with a sore jaw. On top of that, Wilson had to deal with heavy prosthetics to age him into older Biff, and he often said fans loved to hassle him in real life, sometimes yelling "butthead" at him in public. Poor guy. He played one of cinema's greatest bullies so convincingly, people forgot he wasn't actually Biff. At least he got a legendary knockout moment to make up for it. I mean, we can't blame him, can we now? I would have punched him as well. For a movie about time travel, Back to the Future actually had a surprisingly small visual effects budget. Industrial Light and Magic, ILM, the same wizards behind Star Wars, only had about 9 weeks to complete the effects shots. That's lightning speed, pun intended, for Hollywood. The lightning bolt sequence at the clock tower alone was a nightmare. It had to look epic, but still believable for 1985. Most of the film's magic actually came from clever camera work, practical effects, and editing tricks. For instance, Marty fading from existence on stage? That wasn't high-tech CGI, that was simply Fox, filmed in multiple passes with fade-ins and fade-outs. Sometimes the old-school solutions turned out better than flashy digital. And considering it's still rewatched today without looking cheesy, you could argue that Back to the Future pulled off some of the most timeless effects in movie history. Even though most of Eric Stoltz's footage as Marty was destroyed, a few snippets actually made it into the final movie. In particular, the wide shot of Marty diving into the DeLorean and the moment Biff shoves Marty in the diner weren't reshot, because you can't really see the actor's face. So yes, technically Stoltz is still in the film. For hardcore fans, that's like a ghost haunting the final cut. The cast has said the switch was incredibly awkward at first. Imagine filming with one lead actor for weeks, then suddenly swapping him. Out like nothing happened. Christopher Lloyd said he didn't even realize Stoltz was gone until Fox walked on set. "They just told me we had a new Marty," Lloyd recalled. Talk about a mid-production plot twist worthy of time travel itself. Hill Valley, the small-town setting for Back to the Future, wasn't a real place. It was built on Universal Studios' backlot. That town square became one of the most famous sets in Hollywood history. The courthouse building, with its clock tower, showed up in dozens of films and TV shows, from Gremlins to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Fans still visit Universal Studios today just to stand in the square where Marty skateboarded behind a Jeep. Fun detail: during filming, the set wasn't actually as big as it looked. Clever camera angles, extras on bikes, and lots of fog machines gave the illusion of a bustling town. But up close, it was just a few streets and facades, proof that Hollywood doesn't need a real city, just some wood, paint, and movie magic. Before we move on, remember to hit that like button and follow for more movie facts you didn't know about. Christopher Lloyd's manic performance as Doc Brown had one secret ingredient: his wild, unhinged laugh. Lloyd later revealed that Doc's cackling energy came from him imagining the character as someone constantly high on ideas, like he was breathing in his own inventions all the time. He said he wanted Doc to seem like a man who barely lived in the real world, always teetering on the edge of genius and madness. The hair, the hunched walk, the explosive hand gestures, they all built up to that laugh. What's funnier is that kids watching in 1985 didn't know Lloyd from his darker, more sinister roles. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So when he popped up as this lovable nutjob, audiences fell in love instantly. Without Lloyd's eccentric take, Doc Brown might have been just another boring scientist sidekick. Instead, he became unforgettable. Michael J. Fox was perfect as Marty, but dozens of other young stars were in the running first. C. Thomas Howell, Johnny Depp, Charlie Sheen, and even John Cusack auditioned. Can you imagine Marty McFly, played by Pirates of the Caribbean's Captain Jack? Yeah, history dodged a bullet there. Jeff Goldblum and John Lithgow were also considered for Doc Brown, and Crispin Glover, George, was cast partly because he was just plain weird in auditions, exactly what they wanted for Marty's offbeat dad. Hollywood is full of what-ifs, but this movie proves how casting is everything. If one domino fell differently, we might not even be talking about this film today. Instead, the quirky, slightly awkward Michael J. Fox, paired with Christopher Lloyd's wild Doc, became lightning in a bottle, quite literally. Ever notice that George McFly, Crispin Glover, feels a little off in the sequels? That's because Glover refused to return after a contract dispute. Universal wasn't happy, so they used heavy makeup and another actor, Jeffrey Weissman, to impersonate him in Part 2. They even hung him upside down in some shots to disguise the difference. Glover later sued the studio, setting a legal precedent for how studios can or can't use an actor's likeness without consent. He won too, forcing Hollywood to change contracts. So in a bizarre twist, the weirdest actor on set ended up making real legal history. Fans still debate whether the sequels lost something without his oddball energy, but one thing's for sure. George McFly's behind-the-scenes drama was as complicated as his fictional life in Hill Valley. If there's one insult Marty McFly can't handle, it's being called chicken. But fun fact, this running gag didn't even exist until the sequels. In the original film, Marty's flaw was mostly just his tendency to procrastinate. But when Part 2 rolled around, the writers decided to give him a real Achilles heel. That one little word that could make him risk his entire life in a split second. Suddenly, Marty was racing cars, crashing into Rolls-Royces, and messing up timelines, all because he couldn't swallow his pride. While it made for hilarious scenes, it also gave his character more depth. Without that single word, he might have just been the perfect teen hero. With it, he became a little more human and a lot more relatable to anyone who's ever been goaded into doing something stupid. Like every movie, Back to the Future left some moments on the cutting room floor. One scrapped opening had Marty as a rebel in high school, setting off the fire alarm with his trusty skateboard. Another showed Doc trying to scam a power company with a fake weather experiment. These were funny, but test audiences weren't impressed. They wanted the movie to kick off with a bang, not a slow build. So the filmmakers trimmed the fat, and the movie starts right in Doc's lab with clocks ticking. Smart move, because the opening instantly sets the theme: time, time, and more time. Deleted scenes have surfaced in DVD extras, but they feel more like curiosities than missing pieces. Sometimes what you leave out is just as important as what you keep in, and this film nailed it. And for last, let's talk about success. When Back to the Future hit theaters in July 1985, it wasn't just a hit, it was a cultural explosion. The movie raked in over $380 million worldwide, making it the highest-grossing film of the year. That's more than Rocky IV, The Color Purple, and Rambo, First Blood Part 2. It even beat The Goonies. Critics loved it, audiences watched it multiple times, and suddenly the DeLorean was as famous as the Batmobile. The success spawned 2 sequels, a Saturday morning cartoon, comic books, video games, and even a Broadway-style musical decades later, all from a movie that was rejected 40-plus times before finally getting made. In short, Back to the Future didn't just travel through time, it cemented itself in time as one of the most beloved movies of all time. Great Scott, what a ride! Conclusion. And here you have it, the 20 weird, wild, and unbelievable facts about Back to the Future. From fridge time machines and Almost Marty's to real punches and script rejections, this movie's behind-the-scenes story is almost as crazy as the plot itself. It's proof that sometimes the best movies are born from chaos, stubborn directors, and a little bit of luck. Without Spielberg's backing, Michael J. Fox's insane schedule, or Christopher Lloyd's eccentric genius, we might never have gotten the sci-fi adventure that defined the 80s. Back to the Future didn't just break box office records, it became a piece of pop culture history that still makes fans cheer nearly 40 years later. So, next time you hear Doc shot Great Scott, or see that DeLorean rev its engine, remember, the real magic was what happened off camera. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos about movies. And remember where we're going. We don't need roads.